Just start recording. Good morning. It is, Saturday, October 17th at about 4:17 a.m. Oh, what's that, Alex? You could have waited a few more minutes for 4:20? I guess I couldn't have. Shame on me. Throw everything away. Start it all over again. Oh, God. I did not sleep well last night. It wasn't like nightmares or feeling uncomfortable. It kept waking me up. The reason I couldn't sleep well was I kept realizing that I was dreaming. And in that realization, my brain would get way too active with thinking about what I was dreaming about. And I'd just wake up. Man, I haven't heard some of these birds in a long time. I have some ambient audio from Indiana playing. I think somebody's kayaking down a river and just has a camera pointed up. I don't miss the cicadas, but the birds, it's remarkable how different they sound here. And there's a lot of similar species, but not nearly enough crows and seagulls screaming. Yeah, more than anything, what I dreamt about tonight was if I had just what it would have been like if I it's hard to concisely explain. I was dreaming about an ex of mine. Which is kind of a lie to say that I was dreaming about them, because I wasn't entirely. I sort of was, mostly wasn't. I had some dream facsimile of them, which bore some resemblance to them in some specific ways, but it wasn't even an idealized version of them. It was more of an amalgamation of approximations and generalizations rolled up into a half-remembered shadow of a human being. We were I don't know. I really don't know. I kept on waking up and falling back asleep and waking up and falling back asleep into the same sort of cycle. And the theme that kept coming up was giving them affection. Just holding them, really. And while doing so, thinking about, this is such a small thing for me to do. It's such a small thing to be asked of me. It's easy. Why was this something that became so hard? And then that's what spiraled me out every single time and woke me up. This conflict between, here's a human being, here's a person that I cared about a great deal, loved even, for quite some time, and one of the predominant things that eroded the relationship was this growing physical distance between us. Not that we were far away from each other, just that we felt far away. And intimacy, closeness, and affection became increasingly laborious, increasingly serrated. I guess the thing eating at me was just this frustration that why couldn't it have been this easy? You know, why couldn't it have been just as easy as giving them the affection they needed and the love they needed and wanted, and meeting that consistently? I think I had probably thought about them earlier in the day. Yeah, I definitely did yesterday while I was cooking. I had cleaned, I had gone to the grocery store, picked stuff up for something I wanted to cook, come back home, started cooking. I was sauteing some peppers, onions, and tomato to add to some beans and rice, I think. Yeah. What made me think of them was, as I was sauteing it, I got a good whiff of the olive oil I was using. And it brought me a visceral memory of every time this ex cooked with oil, she'd use too much, and she'd have the burner on too high. So this oily smoke would fill our apartment and set off smoke alarms. And she would get indignant about how it was because the fan over the stove wasn't good enough, and the air circulation in the kitchen wasn't good enough. Which is fair, there are styles of cooking that necessitate a lot of oil and a lot of smoke. And I'm smiling thinking about this, but she just could not be divorced from cooking that way. In a microcosm, it really, I don't know, it highlights to me not our inability to change, but our lack of desire to really change, our lack of willingness to really meaningfully, dutifully, wholly devote ourselves to the change. And to that point, God, I'm terrible about cleaning consistently. I absolutely am. It was a serious problem in that relationship because she was a lot more particular than I am about it. Now, I've worked as a cleaner. I've worked in capacities where it's my professional obligation to keep places spick and span absolutely spotless, and in that capacity, I'm more than capable. But in my home, I don't hold myself to such an exacting, exhausting standard where everything needs to be meticulous and shining and dusted and cleaned. Maybe to a fault. In fact, it's definitely an area where I could use some improvement. I far too often let things go. To which depression is a component, undoubtedly. And that was a sticking point in this relationship, right? That from her perspective, it seemed like I never would step up, even after conversations about me taking more responsibility for cleaning or cooking or whatever else. It just never manifested. Well, it never really manifested because our patterns of behavior never really changed. Time and time again, when we get in these arguments, I tell her that I want to help and I want to change and I want to grow in a way that is healthier for the both of us. But to do that, I needed her help to ask me for help when she needed it. To help point out to me things that I could be doing different or better. And not just by getting angry at me. To which she so often responded that that wasn't reasonable, that she was still doing more emotional work and carrying more of a burden. And absolutely, in that respect, that she was being cognizant about these things and that they impacted her emotionally and psychologically more than me. She was carrying more of a burden. But when I asked her to try to verbalize and communicate that feeling, those precedents, the standards consistently, so as to help us better understand where one another are at and help me get up to her standard, then she went off on talking about how it was tied into gender and tied into how men aren't cultured to doing housework, essentially doing the emotional labor of X, Y, and Z. And she touched upon something that's very real, very, very real, but is something that I'm rampantly cognizant of and was trying to communicate with, hey, I wasn't aware that I was doing this. This is a way that'll help me not do this. This is a way that'll help me learn these behaviors, learn these norms, learn these skills and standards that you want me to have. But her frustration was that I couldn't just do it. I couldn't just skip to the part where it wasn't a problem. Now that's fair. That's absolutely fair, right? Like, if something's bothering us, we want it fixed. We want it over. That's the base, quick, immediate reaction. But so often, especially when it comes to human behavior, change is slow and methodical and exhausting. Utterly exhausting to accomplish. That change needs to be consistent, whether it be working out, changing your diet, learning something new, changing a habit. Yeah, you have to do it over and 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 over. And if it's antithetical or oppositional or different even from the way that you are accustomed, without structural or externalized support or reinforcement, or at least some sort of reminder, it's very, very easy for us to slip back into old modes of behavior, old patterns of thinking and action. Which is what I was speaking to, right? That I needed a hand. Yeah, I definitely think her frustration was valid. A little harsh. But all told, not out of character, not strange. Yeah, in some ways, in almost every relationship I've had this feeling like there was some self, some person that I never really got to know with the other person. This ex would often say to me that she wasn't a good person. She wasn't a nice person. And if I could see or hear her thoughts, then, you know, my opinion or perspective of her would be entirely different. To which I was excited. I'm like, cool, share that with me. I'm in. I want to get to know you, whatever that is, whoever that is. That's the fun part of relationships, is exploration. Finding and getting to know the entirety and totality of another human being. Better understanding yourself and the world around you and your species, all the better for that experience. Man, the internet is being horrible today. There's no reason why my upspeed should be that low. Unless something's updating. Looks at Epic Game Store. Yep, that fixed it. She never really did. She was never really open to sharing that part of herself. There was a lot of shame and self-denial there, in a way that resonates with me, because when I was much younger, when I was a teenager, actively experienced the same sort of externalizing all the things I interpreted as negative and saying that they weren't me, or they were another part of me, or like voice of Satan or temptation or what have you, but trying to be a better person despite them. I think the real way to negotiate that, the healthiest way to negotiate that, is to recognize that we have these antisocial or aggressive or toxic or mean, selfish, vicious, angry tendencies. We all do. Some more so than others, some more often than others. And that these feelings, inclinations, voices, if you think with words, are not externalized. They're not something to push down and deny and bury and bottle up. They're something to feel out and talk through and live with, because they're not some externalized force. They are part of yourself. They are speaking to needs and wants that are dissatisfied. They're speaking to fears. They're speaking to anxieties, frustrations. They are very real, they're warning lights, right? And if you're ignoring them, well, you're not helping yourself, and you're not helping anyone else. Even if you think that your behavior is. But yeah, that dream, I wouldn't say it haunted me, but it kept roping me back in. And it wasn't with the desire of, oh, I wish I could have this back, or I miss this person, or I miss this relationship. No, the thing that kept on dragging me back was kind of this self-guilt of it could have been so easy to just do what they wanted me to do. To just be more physically present consistently. To just ignore the various reasons why I wanted space from them and needed space from them and just be there with them. The relationship was one that frequently got caught in negative feedback loops. I would do something to upset them. They would get angry at me. And when I say something to upset, I mean like not wanting to have sex with them, or forgetting to do something, or not being able to sleep so I was tired when we had a date, or staying up all night doing something I found fun, which meant that we didn't sleep at the same time, which was some sort of, I don't know, betrayal to them. That's unfair. I stayed up all night playing games or watching shows or doing things that excited me and interested me because I liked having space to myself sometimes. It's very important to me. And they felt ignored and like they were functionally single because their partner wasn't sleeping with them, which, again, they never, like, directly asked for me to sleep at the same time they did. They just always resorted to jumping to anger and frustration and lashing out, or more often than lashing out, internalizing it, bottling it up, and then not bringing it up until they had reached a breaking point, at which point no concessions on my part would be adequate, or no actions on my part would be adequate because they wouldn't be immediate and totally transformative enough to immediately rise to meet this need. God, communication was such a consistent issue. But anyway, there would be something to upset her. She would get angry at me. I would be hurt by that anger and not want to be close to her, which would make her angry at me, which would make her express that anger towards me, which would make me not want to be close to her, which would make her angry and express that anger, etc., 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 etc. She didn't push me away so much as she showed me a side of her that made me want to pull away time and time again, over and over again. And the dream, I guess, was, what if you just, fucking dealt with it, Alex? What if you just gave her affection and closeness and all the other things despite feeling battered, bombarded? And in the dream, it was just so easy to do so because I wasn't actually feeling that sort of pain that I used to feel when someone I loved lashed out at me. That sort of betrayal and fear, vulnerability. Yeah. That's what I dreamt about last night over and over and over. And I don't want this whole video to be about dreaming again. I've done that too many times. Dreamings, especially dreams, or dreaming, really occupy a lot of my thoughts when I first wake up. Especially when I don't have something else to do. So it is a common theme for me, and, for all the psychological reasons and other reasons as well. I think dreams are important. I like to pick and poke and prod at them. I do. let's talk about something else. I voted yesterday. I voted around 4 in the morning. I got up. It was the 16th. That meant my ballot had been mailed out. So I was hoping that it had gotten here, and it had. Humorously, once I got it back to my apartment from the mailroom, opened it up, and started looking through it, I wanted to go ahead and look up a few of the candidates online. Local candidates, mostly, who I had looked up prior, but couldn't remember why I had circled people in a handbook that were given of candidates instead of others, and I wanted to look more into them, and the internet was down. It was down for a considerable period yesterday. Seriously, Comcast, I just want you to be better. It'll never happen. But, I should have switched ISPs earlier this year. I thought, it'll be too hard. I'll have a couple days of an outage. Let's just stick with them. They haven't been that bad. It might be a little expensive to stay with them and get a better plan, and that was a mistake. So I had to vote using my phone as my sole way to access the internet, looking up, now why did I pick this person instead of this person? I'll be honest with you, when I reached the president section, I had pause. I definitely had pause. For president, there were 3 candidates that stood out to me as wanting to vote for. You could tell I'm from Washington and not the rest of the country, because that's right, there were 3 interesting candidates there. There's 2 socialist candidates, which, again, Socialist Party of America and Socialist Workers Party of America, can you just fucking kiss and make up? And, I don't know, consolidate? Because I'm not voting for either of your candidates until you stop running candidates contrary to each other and the Green Party. Join the fucking Green Party for the presidential bids and stop doing this shit. Like, the Green Party's already, like, a pie high hope, right, that they'll ever get a significant amount of votes. But fucking socialists, and I'm speaking as a socialist, either show solidarity in having a single candidate, or don't, right? Don't throw a candidate in the mix, because, God, even in other countries with socialist parties, they don't run multiple candidates against each other. So I voted for Howie Hawkins, as you do. And this is the part where liberals start pouring in, who I've never met before and have no standing in my city or my social strata or my culture or my life, and they start telling me that, we vote blue no matter who, that voting for Hawkins is throwing away your vote, and that voting third party is just voting for the other person, or all this other weird indoctrinated stuff they've been conditioned to believe. And the fact of the matter is, Joe Biden represents no values of mine. None. He is a corporatist, elitist son of a bitch. He's center-right. He has spent the entirety of his political life campaigning for his donors and benefactors, campaigning for insurance companies and other various causes and enterprises that strip the wealth away from the poor. I mean, the fucking 1994 crime bill, like, there's so many reasons why I wouldn't vote for him. Least of all, the way the Democratic National Convention handled the primaries. The clear poll rigging vote fixing, the closing of polling places, not just against Sanders, but against candidates like Cory Booker, right, in Kentucky? Cory Booker. Yeah, Cory Booker in Kentucky absolutely got screwed by the DNC. Absolutely got screwed by the DNC. After months and months and months of these stupid libs telling progressives and leftists that we are the reason that Hillary lost the election. No, she is the reason she lost the election. After it took Barack Obama making backdoor calls to the candidates running for the DNC, telling them that, listen, we gotta all line up behind Biden so he can beat Bernie. No, I'm not voting for your candidate. You actively sabotaged me, my comrades, my belief, my candidate. I don't give a shit that Bernie is being a good politician and being like, ooh, we need to vote for Biden. Fuck him. I don't do whatever Bernie tells me to. Bernie was a compromise. Bernie is the rare instance of a democratic socialist in the United States who has held office long enough to be a potential prospect for president. And a good one at that. He wasn't perfect. He wasn't perfect. There are policies and shortcomings that he had that definitely need addressing. I mean, hell, Howie Hawkins, more progressive and more leftist candidate, still has weak spots in faults and shortcomings. Absolutely. But those are candidates I'm willing to say, okay, yeah, they represent enough of my values. Yeah, that person is voting and speaking in my interests. This is a politician who actually embodies my voice, what I want, what I believe in, and what we need. I'm never, ever going to vote for a lesser of two evils out of some idea of damage control. That's a trick, dude. That's how you get the Overton window to keep moving further and further to the right. That's how you get more and more conservative candidates over time. That's why the Democratic Party has kept shifting further and further to the right, is this idea of appealing to these undecided voters in the middle. Trying to be not as bad as the last guy, but not good either. You know what? No, I'm not voting for a candidate who isn't good. Biden or Trump would both be terrible. Absolutely terrible. And will be terrible. I mean, Trump is probably going to win the election, if we're being honest, because Biden's run a god-awful campaign. Granted, Trump is just fucking insane. Right? And you would like to think that his regularly broadcasting of that divorcement from reality would be hurting him in the polls, but I think the sad truth is a lot of his "what are the people voting for him" are unaware, unconcerned, or as disturbed as he is. Unconcerned because perhaps they financially benefit, unaware because they're ignorant, or they just insist on voting red out of fear of all the reasons that so many unwitting Republicans are told that Democrats are evil or sinful or the work of Satan. I mean, the American church, the American Christian churches, evangelicals in particular, do an amazing amount of work scaring otherwise progressive people into being reactionary. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see next month. I mean, listen, I don't have high hopes, right? Liberals talked about not even a fucking month ago that if the Republicans insisted on replacing Ginsburg, that they would be out rioting. Well, they're doing it, and the liberals aren't even protesting. Just sitting at home. Moved on to the next issue, or they're quietly angry. That's about it. They're so fucking worthless. They absolutely are. I hate election season. I hate all of these parties and organizations that the rest of the year, the rest of the 4 years, don't email, they don't write, they don't campaign, they don't do anything. But like a month leading up to the election, or 2 months, getting constant spam like, hey, have you registered to vote? Hey, are you registered to vote? Have you considered voting for this person? Are you voting for this? Hey, fuck off. Do work consistently, or leave me the fuck alone. Be like the DSA. Send me an email every month, or every 2 fucking weeks, or every week even, depending on what's going on. Do real organizing work. Build communities, build organizations. Don't just spam people at the 11th hour, hoping to cajole them into action. You might get decent returns on trying to shake people up by calling at the last minute, but you're not going to build a movement, you're not going to build an organization, you're not going to build grassroots infrastructure, you're not going to build a party even doing that. All you're doing is, I mean, really, honestly, irritating people. You're driving me up a fucking wall, and I am registered to vote. I don't think you're going to be reaching people who aren't registered to vote because you're just spamming them. Not even engaging in conversation or dialogue or discussion. You're not reaching them emotionally or meaningfully. You're just bashing them over the head. Which, to the same effect, is exactly what the fucking Democrats have been doing with this vote blue no matter who horseshit. Two-faced garbage where they, then harass the leftists and progressives who traditionally have been in their voting bloc, rather than going after the actual swing voters that they believe exist, or going after the conservatives that they believe can be brought over. No, they just beat up on the real bedrock of their party, the people who do all the organizing work, all the activism work, all the political work of getting candidates into office who are taken advantage of, abused, and betrayed time and time again. Yeah, we're the one that gets kicked. To people who think that somehow Kamala Harris makes Biden more electable, you are fucking high. She is an incredibly unlikable cop. She's self-described as California's biggest cop. When California schools were dealing with problems with students not attending, attendance problems, playing hooky, stuff like that, her response was to threaten to hold the parents legally responsible, i.e. imprison them, if they did not make their kids attend school. It worked, and she's proud of this policy. What the fuck is wrong with you? A parent should not be thrown into school because their kid doesn't want to attend school. Like, failure to educate your child is a problem. Yeah, but that's a failure of the state. There are needs being unmet here. The education system is failing so many kids, particularly lower income kids. It's not providing enough nutrition. It's not providing enough social support. It's not providing enough material support. Like, it's expensive going to school if you talk about books and school supplies and everything else, even just clothes. And these are just expected costs that parents will absorb. And the state apparatus, federal and local, is unwilling or unable to absorb. Well, it's able to, it's unwilling to absorb, it's unwilling to mitigate. So the failures of the state are, in a classic American fashion, ignored and recontextualized as individual failure. That your child is failing at school, your child is not attending school because of you. You're the problem. Your kid is the problem. Because any admission to the contrary is antithetical to the American propaganda complex, right? That America is perfect. America is a more perfect union. It's the city on the hill. It's the beacon of democracy. And America cares about its people. It's so funny how we're a democracy when we're talking about propaganda, but we're a republic. Once people start being like, hey, why isn't my voice listened to? Like, whoa, we can't change the Electoral College. We're a republic. Ah, yes, of course. How convenient. And this country will act like it's here for you until you need it, or until you dare to criticize it. And then the problem isn't the country, the problem is you. Because you're too radical. You're not conforming enough. You're just an anti-conformist anarchist. Oh, you're just a socialist. Oh, those are just some rednecks. Ah, those are just disaffected, angry hill folk. Oh, those people are just some uppity people on a reservation. Oh, those hippies not wanting that pipeline to go through. Ah, those social outliers, right? Those others. And the way you become othered is to be victimized by the state. By capitalism, more so than anything else, but by the state more broadly. Once you're victimized, you realize you're in a position where your well-being and the well-being of this apparatus, this state, or this system, i.e. capitalism, are antithetical to one another. One has to bend, or one is going to break. And the one that bends the vast majority of the time is the person, the individual, right? We bend by accepting that we have to work 40 hours a week minimum. That minimum wage doesn't go up. That we have to pay out the nose for insurance. That the vast majority of our taxes go to oppressing people overseas and terrorizing foreign nations more so than it does helping our veterans. Building schools, maintaining roads. So we bend, right? We work because we have to survive. And we participate because we have to survive. Otherwise, we'd break. Breaking, for an individual, looks like homelessness. It looks like mental health crises. It looks like suicide. It looks like depression. It looks like anxiety. And all of these things are at all-time highs. But still, the party line for the United States is that homeless people are homeless largely by their own fault. People who are sick should have gotten help. People... It's so fucking disgusting. The language that we use. The language that this country uses and normalizes. It's all from the guise and the standpoint, the perspective and the lens of being upper class. Not middle class, by the way, which is incredibly small and you're probably not a part of it. If you think you're a part of the middle class, you're not. you're part of the working class. If you have to work a 9 to 5, if you have to work a salary job, you are working class. The middle class are people who come to own the means of production, who start out as working class. The upper class, the capitalist class, are the people who own the means of production. So middle class means that you have to be capable of purchasing means of production, wholesale, and then operating it. It's like the petite bourgeois. The petite capitalists. Petite bourgeois are what most of us are. The little bourgeois. Big mood. Yeah. I was talking for the first 20 minutes or so about how I didn't sleep very well last night at all. So I'm sorry you're in the same boat. This country sucks. But anyway, yeah, I didn't vote Biden, and I didn't vote Trump, and y'all can get fucked. I voted Harris. I voted Green Party, the way I said I was gonna vote, since the DNC fucked over my candidate. Because y'all weren't obligated to my vote, and you didn't earn it. And hey, if/when Biden loses, if you want to blame me, go right ahead. But the problem aren't, to my point, the people you shouldn't be blaming are the victims. The people you should be blaming are the people with the means to control things, i.e. Biden, i.e. the DNC. Oh, yeah, of course I voted for local elections. It's all in the same ballot for us, and we get it mailed to us. Washington is amazingly easy to vote. You have to try to not vote in Washington. So long as you have an address that you can pick it up from, you can vote here. I voted for, honestly, a bunch of Democrats. I mean, that's who runs our state anyways. Most of them were running unopposed or opposed by people posing as independents who are just mouth-foaming Republicans from Eastern Washington. Oh, yeah. Yeah, like the superintendent of schools, or the head of education, God, I forget the title for Washington. There is our incumbent, who's like a Democrat dude who's kind of unexciting, and he's talking about how, COVID is a problem, and we need to focus on pre-kindergarten learning to help tackle literacy, make sure that everyone's literate. We need to work on trade schools to help people get into the job market more easily, and we need to focus on, COVID, obviously, because that's a major issue. The lady running against him, the first warning sign I saw was that she went to Lutheran University, or Lutheran College. I'm like, that's interesting. And she had experience volunteering or working with other Catholic and Lutheran organizations. It's like, yeah. And what she goes off on is claiming that currently in schools, they're teaching kids sex positions. And that's what she's running on. More so than anything else, she uses a bunch of neutral language for everything else, but then just, attacks the current incumbent by saying that they're teaching kids sex positions, 4th graders, I think. And by that, she's probably referring to sex education, which, yes, we are teaching your children and should be teaching your children, and shame on you for not teaching them sooner. But no, she's running as an independent, totally not a conservative. Doug Democrat over at the Dimsdale Brocadome. Yeah. Yeah. It's just silly. I voted for one real progressive. It's funny, there are two who were running as Democrat. One has the support of unions, the other doesn't. And the one who doesn't have union support is using attack ads on her, the person running against her. It's just like, okay, well, guess I'm voting for the unionist then. Damn, lady, could have made this easier. for the Attorney General position, I think. There's one who is nominated by unions, and there's one who's nominated by not Attorney General, the local equivalent, the state equivalent. The other is backed by police. I'm like, I wonder which one I should pick here. The ones the cops want, or the one that the unions want? Yeah. You know, if the Democrats lose this presidential bid, they deserve to. And they've run a shit campaign. They picked the one of the worst candidates. And they had access to the best populist candidate that the Democrats have had in the better part of a century. If they lose, it's no one's fault but their own. And you know what? I don't give a shit if a bunch of angry, white, middle-aged people want to blame me because it's your fault, assholes. The planet's going to shit because of you. The country's gone to shit because of you. And if you want to keep playing the victim and externalizing it and blaming everyone else because you have this waspy victim complex, go fuck yourself. I don't care about you anymore. What can you do? What can you do? You already ruined the economy time and time again. You're ruining the planet. I'm probably not gonna live to ripe old age. I'm like tens of thousands of dollars in debt. Like, what more can you do to me? Huh? Oh, fuck you. You want to shame me and guilt me? It means nothing. It means nothing. The world you left me is a shallow husk of what it could have been. Fuck you. How do you lose this election? How do you not swing in the middle of a plague? Easily. By running a candidate who doesn't back up universal basic income, who doesn't back up Medicare for all, who doesn't have any meaningful policies at all. Just slight mitigations and slight tweaks that really don't reform or meaningfully change anything. They're just betting on Trump talking himself into the grave, which, you know, he has a great capacity to do if your understanding is that the candidates or the voters are also not crazy. Trump's not dying. He's hyped up on steroids and probably will be for a while. He's fucking crazy. But yeah, he ain't gonna die. I wasn't thinking he was going to die. He, like I had mentioned before, has access to the best medical care in the world. They'd make him a zombie sooner than they let him die. American presidents very rarely die in office. They get incredible health care. Which, you know, makes sense. The quality of care he got would have cost any other American hundreds of thousands of dollars, but he doesn't have to pay a dime. Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to repeat what you wrote, but yes. Because YouTube's algorithm won't like that, but yes. Lincoln and Kennedy, healthcare didn't help them enough. And, you know, that's what the Democrats are saying will happen if Trump loses and stays in office. But honestly, what the Democrats are going to do is be mad about it for like a few weeks and then do nothing about it. They're a bunch of fucking pushovers. They are completely worthless. And I mean, calling them pushovers is incorrect. They're not pushovers. They're corporate elite. And just offer lip service to make, you know, us working plebs believe that they are on our side when they aren't. Yeah. Oh, I'm sure I'm under investigation by the Bureau, or at least have a file. Because I've said enough questionable things and participated in enough activist organizations and progressive organizations that I'm sure I'm on a list somewhere. I wouldn't be surprised. It'd really be a waste of time to grab me, but yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling pretty disaffected. Like, I I can't care about much for this next month. I really can't. Because, like, it's all fucked, dog. Like, why? I'm applying for jobs right now, and I got a email back about an interview at a children's museum in Bellevue, which is like an hour away from me, and I'm not even sure I want it. I like museums. I really like children's museums. They were hugely, hugely impactful on forming my love of knowledge and history and exploration and learning. They made a big impact on me as a kid, and I'd love to be able to be in a position where I can help facilitate that same sort of positive experience for other people. But I'm not great with kids, if I'm being honest. Like, I think they're fine. They're like little monsters, which are pretty rad. But like, not my jam. I don't have a lot of like the first aid, CPR certifications that they understandably want. And also, I'm not a big fan of an hour-long commute for a $17.50 an hour position. I think the position, if I'm remembering correctly, let me just pull up my spreadsheet where I track all of my applications, because I apply to hundreds of things a month, and by no right should be able to remember all of them. I think it's, let's see. Yeah, $17 to $20 an hour. $20, I might do it, but like, yeah, probably not, if I'm being honest. Like, it's interesting, but yeah. You looked at McAfee's Twitter as of late. Tax fraud means lying on your tax refunds. I haven't paid my taxes in like 8 years. He ain't got shit on me. Yeah, McAfee's a trip, isn't he? Particularly how he has a couple of videos on like how to how to avoid the FBI, basically how to avoid the CIA, like how to get off the oh my god, what's the turn of phrase? Nope, can't remember it. Yeah, he's a winner. He's a real winner. He's an amazing historical figure for internet culture and really like tech culture that a lot of people forget about. I don't know. I find myself not excited about any work right now because, like, dog, I don't know if the country's gonna be burning in a month. It probably won't, but, like, this is a pretty high anxiety time to be looking into work. And I am kind of the persuasion that things are gonna get worse before they get better. And I also, like, very much hesitate at the prospect of getting a job I'd have to commute to or go to physically, because COVID's still a thing here in the United States. I mean, Washington, all told, isn't that bad as far as COVID-19 goes, but we're not at an all-time high, but we're damn close. We had 700 new cases yesterday, mostly around Seattle. For the last 2 weeks, in King County, we've had 2,000 cases. Now, King County, total population is 2.2 million. So, you know, that's a drop in a bucket. What was that? 2253. It's like 1 in 1,000 people have it. It's like 0.1% of the population. It's not a ton, but also like... Yeah. Oh, that finally cut out. Alright. Only rain sounds now. I didn't expect this to take an hour. Nah, it's good. You're good. I know Belice is Belize. I can fill in the gaps. You're speaking as well, or writing as well as most people do on a good day, so don't give yourself shit. You're good. Yeah, I mean, no one generally wants to work, broadly speaking. But like, oh, God, listen, I have until the end of December before I'm fucked. And by fucked, I mean I can't be evicted at that point because evictions still have a moratorium, but I'll be, like, completely out of money, which is a bit of a problem. And unemployment won't help me because they are garbage and still haven't replied, or still haven't done anything about my appeal. And, yeah, you know, it's not great. So another stimulus would be great because that would buy me another month essentially, but at this point I'm like, it's next month's problem. Yeah, I don't want to work right now. I really don't. There are some positions I want to work right now, but the vast majority I don't, or I'd only be working for a paycheck, and I do so begrudgingly, if I'm being honest. And hey, if a recruiter has made it to an hour and 2 minutes, or 3 minutes into this video, Godspeed, man. You deserve to hear me talk about how I don't want to be doing this. I don't want to be doing this. I probably don't give a shit about your company. I'm not going to yell this time. I'm not going to yell this time. I know last time I talked about this, I started yelling. I'm not going to do it this time. I'm not that upset. Really, I'm feeling just kind of disaffected and numb? Not numb, like, sort of similar to numb, but the kind of numbness you feel when you've just been bombarded so much that you lack the capacity to feel anymore. Numbness to me is because of, like, exposure to cold or cutting off blood circulation, but this is more like I just cannot pick up the sensory input anymore. What Aguinaldo? Aguinaldo is a Filipino revolutionary politician. Oh, yeah. Well, man, how are the Philippines doing right now? Probably not great, right? I haven't thought about the Philippines in a while. I dated someone from the Philippines. They really loved the country. Except when I talked about the revolutionary history of the Philippines and talked about how fucking rad the revolutionaries and communists were. And then she and I, apparently made it very clear we had a difference of class there because her family is wealthy and white in the Philippines, which means communists are bad. I'm like, communists are good and your family are trash. Should have put a damper on that relationship. Oh. You meant 13th paycheck, but that works too. I have 13th salary or end of year bonus. Oh. I'm like, what the fuck is 13th paycheck? What is this? This is not a thing in the United States. End of year bonuses are very rare in the US. I mean, I got one, but it was all based on what the wealthy people at the place I worked at deigned to hand down to us plebeians working the front door. They decided to give the help. I'm really not that bitter or upset. Well, I heard a notification sound, but it was hidden behind this, so whoever you were, thanks. Hello. I think that's the YouTube subscription sound too. The one that I've never been able to figure out why it's still in here and have been unable to excise. Well, let's see. Let's see. Was that the YouTube sound? I'm just talking now. Yep, it was YouTube. Dijon Hughes 7. Nice. Yeah, I could not tell you why YouTube is tied into Streamlabs. It shouldn't be. I've removed the account from Streamlabs, but it still sends notifications here. I'm kind of okay with it at this point. That's very cool. That's very cool. Yeah, good times here in the US of A. God, I really don't expect good news from this election. So, like a lot of people, I'm living in kind of limbo right now, just waiting to see how, what the next 4 years are going to look like. Bad. Basically, it's going to look bad. It's going to look really bad. I mean, just looking at the COVID statistics, we're at the second worst it's ever been in terms of infections per day. October the 13th was the 5th highest infection date on record. With over 1,000 new confirmed cases in the United States. No, in Washington alone. Sorry, in the United States, we are at 70,451 cases as of October 16th. That's current cases. No, sorry, new cases. That's just new cases, which is the third highest? Second highest? Third highest day on record. I mean, the fucking... The bar graph looks like this. This isn't a good look. Remember when, like, I gotta flatten the curve, it's working, let's open everything back up. Yes, but then people went back to work after the 4th of July, and now we're just giving up. We've given up, and it's on its way back up. We're just completely fucked. And anyone saying anything to the contrary is lying. Yeah, I'm not saying you should become an OnlyFans e-boy to make ends meet, but I'm also saying you shouldn't. You're also not saying that I shouldn't. That's a troubling trend. Well, not a troubling trend. It's a strange trend amongst partners of mine. Romantic partners of mine, particularly. That are like, hey, have you ever thought about sex work? Like, like, a little, kind of like, distantly, like, theoretically, like, that could be a thing. But particularly in my last relationship, she brought up very often that, like, you should do this professionally, because I'm not that good of a lay, alright? I'm really not. I'm fine. I get really good head. I'm not gonna back down from that. But, like, generally, I'm okay. Like, I'm just considerate, right? And apparently that's the threshold. If I were more confident, I absolutely would. I'm just not that confident. I just don't think that I'm that... I think I'm attractive. I just don't think I'm that attractive. I think there are sexier people out there than me, and that the platforms are already inundated with people. I just don't know why anyone would fixate on me or support me individually. Now, I'm not saying this from a self-depreciating place, maybe a little bit, but mostly like in the same kind of aspect that I have towards my online content for, like, Twitch and YouTube. My expectation is not that I'll make a living out of this, or any money out of this, because there's just so many people doing it that I'm a drop in the bucket, and I'm not, like, stressing out trying to make it. Yeah, socialist e-boys, I could. Kind of doubt it. I don't know. Maybe, like, the lighting in my... If I'm talking more practically, like, the lighting in my apartment is not great for photos, and I'd have to change some of the lighting conditions, and that would cost money. The camera I have is okay, but really it would necessitate getting a better camera. But I guess not necessarily just to meet my exacting standards with photography, which is kind of a high bar. I'd have to pay hundreds or thousands that I don't have into setting up the infrastructure to make it okay. Like, even the webcam, the quality of this thing sucks, and I complain about it constantly. constantly. It's not a bad idea. And it's an idea I've thought about. It's just one that I don't... Meh. Is really where I come out on it. It'd probably do me a lot of good, confidence-wise. So, you know, if I'm wrong about this, obviously correct me in the YouTube comments if you would subscribe to OnlyFans that I have, but I'm... Nah, doubt it. Doubt it. Let's be honest, people who pay for nudes don't know about photography. Well, okay, generally people don't know about photography, just end statement, right? Most people are completely ignorant about what makes a good photo, even like rules of threes or golden ratio or, oh God, lighting essentials or contrast or backdrops or so many simple things. Like depth of field. Yeah, don't get me started, but yes, you're right. Only cares about how many payments it takes them to get to the nudes instead of the kind of nudes. I mean, if people... It also is like there's so much free porn on the internet. So much porn on the internet. If you don't want to pay, if you're just here to get your rocks off, it's so easy to do so. So, successful adult content makers tend to have something that attracts clientele, i.e., you know, good people who want to spend money to support sex work because they recognize it is real work, just like any other kind of labor, and they want to compensate those laborers in exchange for their services, right? or, and this is more often the case, they want to spend money to try to enter a parasocial, i.e. parasitic social relationship with this person that they find attractive and have some sort of facsimile of connection with them. Yeah. I don't know, it's a thing I've thought about. It's a thing I might do. I can't convince myself it would be worth my time to do so. That's really the stopping point at this point. Like, it's not worth the money. Like, it's not worth my time. I would make nothing out of it. And I think I'd probably feel worse in doing it. That's the fear, right? That I do it not be successful, and I feel worse about myself because of that. Yeah. Yeah, not often you'll get people who are playing Paradox games as analytical and critical as I am of games media, who will then talk about, like, oh yeah, no, I'd do sex work if it were profitable. For me, individually. Yeah, absolutely. And not in some, like, chauvinistic, gross, toxic, drippingly masculine way. Just like a, yeah, totally. I'm alright. I'd really like to be doing something meaningful with my time to help manage, I don't know, our homeless crisis, or our housing crisis, let's say, because the homeless people are not a crisis, they're victims of a crisis. The housing crisis, the depression that we are in, the early days of, the epidemic that's ravaging our country, boosting socialist and progressive causes, working in education, working in museums, working in game design or game testing, working in really arts media in general, whether that be in galleries, which I know is just money laundering for the elite or whatever else. There's so many things I'd like to do and I'd be good at, but I just can't do. That sucks. OnlyFans is free by default. Multiple people have had their account name leaked before they finish setting it up, so then they have to sit down and block people who got free sub before actually uploading content. That's some big brain stuff there. I follow quite a few women and non-binary folks on Twitter and Twitch who have OnlyFans. And it's interesting this year in particular. Even prior to the whole COVID thing, in the last year, I've noticed it, 2019 to now, I've noticed an increasing number of people being like, hey, why don't I get into OnlyFans? Why don't I give this a try? I can make money off of this instead of just having to deal with creeps asking for feet in my inbox all the time. I can just post feet and say, give me $50 and then make $50 and not have them bothering me. Though they still bother people for freebies or whatever, but you know, I can profit off of these creeps. That has been a growing trend for, you know, a while now, and it's been interesting to see. A lot of content supporters I like, or content makers I like, are like, hey, I'm doing this now. I'm like, huh, cool, neat. And a few close friends of mine as well. Just, if we all get on OnlyFans, where's the money coming from at that point? I kid. And there is a troubling aspect, on the other hand, that, you know, we are in a economic depression. We are in a straight-up depression, the second worst in American history. Maybe the worst in American history. We'll have to give it a year or two to see how bad it gets. And a lot of people are finding one of the only viable means of sustaining themselves are through sex work. And there's nothing shameful about sex work, but we do live in a society and a culture that shames sex work, demonizes and criminalizes sex work. So it puts these people who are finding a means to support themselves through this labor at risk, not by the labor, but by the state and the state's attitude towards that labor, and by the culture's attitude towards that labor. The real threat are, yeah. Yeah. I don't know. These are like deeply dark and depressing times. I think if you jump back 20 years and told people what the year 2020 would be like, they would be terrified. They'd absolutely be terrified. Yeah, so we have a pandemic that's killed more Americans than the First World War. Oh no, it isn't stopping. We don't have control over it at all. Oh, the president's reality TV star. Not just that, he's a rampant white nationalist. Well, he's a racist, not a white nationalist. Oh yeah, they're militia that support him. No, not just the KKK, they're old news. Oh, there's like hundreds of white nationalist organizations now. Oh yeah, they've just been getting worse and more armed over the last 20 years. Oh sure, there are a few leftist militias as well, but they're demonized by the public. Oh yeah, there are people protesting against police brutality, but the police just respond with more brutality. Oh yeah, people are being shot in their own homes now. Shot in the back by police. None of them are held accountable. No, none of them. No, it's not a fluke. No, not just in the South. It's everywhere. It's just... Yeah, some people back in the early 2000s probably would be like, I was right! But the vast majority probably had a more positive outlook. I mean, the idea of Amazon, a floundering book company in the early 2000s, where you could order some books and it'd take like a week to get to you. I mean, shit, I remember Amazon as just being where I went to buy books in college. Yeah, they had other stuff, but I was only buying books there because why would I buy anything else? And I went to college in 2010. The idea that this is now one of the biggest corporations in the world and they de facto have taken over the mail apparatus of the United States and distribute more goods than anyone else and basically have warehouses that have inhumane labor, the same kind that we shame in other countries. It's just, man, yeah, this country is really, it's fucking terrible. It's always been terrible. And in some ways it's gotten better, you know, gay people can hold hands in public now. Yay. They can get married for whatever that's worth. Not... I don't put a lot of stock in marriage generally, not to take away from what an accomplishment it was to get there, but also, like, the LGBTQ rights are still tenuous at best, especially with the new Supreme Court nominee, and it's just... bleh. Oh yeah, Netflix, the guys that used to mail you movies, kind of like a weird Blockbuster, they basically reinvented television. They're Disney too. Oh, Disney owns Star Wars. A whole lot of the people you love are dead. Celebrities are dead from all kinds of causes. Let's not dig into that. I mean, 20 years ago, they don't even know about 9/11 yet. Like, this is a vastly different world I'm talking about here. God, yeah, the Bush administration is just about to take over. The second Bush administration, I should say. My good God, in my life, this country has changed so much. So much. No, you've never heard of the Patriot Act, huh? Oh boy, buckle up. You're gonna be thrilled to learn how many of your your representatives in Congress quickly, knee-jerkingly signed away many of your rights. Oh, and no, you won't get it back once the crisis is over, because the crisis will never be over, because the crisis is fabricated by our foreign relations policy and our continued intervention in the Middle East and other countries, forming these kind of insurgent movements that we need to justify these policies, and the resulting economic depression here in the United States from decades now, nearly half a century of neoliberal economics, has resulted in a disaffected homegrown insurgency of sorts from two different directions, and, well, that just re-solidifies it all the more. In fact, I would not be surprised if in the next year... God, wow, I hate this take. I would be really surprised if in the next year, regardless of who wins the election, we will have an equivalent to a second Patriot Act. Because we have seen the longest lasting protests in American history, some of the most violent police brutality in American history. We've seen increasing amounts of violence between leftists and fascists. We've seen increasing amounts of shootings and gun violence and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'd be amazed if we didn't have a second Patriot Act in the next 4 years. You're a veteran in the future? Oh, what can you tell me about the war? Who'd we go fight? Did we go fight for freedom? Oh, Jimmy. All the wars or just the wars I toured in? There's more than one war? Oh, there's... Let me tell you the ways. To be fair, in American history, we have had the longest period of peace in American history. Longest period of peace in U.S. history was 17 years. We've had only 17 years of peace in our entire history. The longest... We've been at war for 93% of our history. Oh, God. Yeah, I like to forget about this. We enjoyed peace between 1769 and 1777, 1807 and 1809, 1828, 1830, and then 1935 to 1940-ish. Yeah, just over and over again. Interventionism has been United States policy for the long time. We, whether it be warring with indigenous nations, which occupied us for a couple of centuries, and occupies us still. One of the first wars the United States got into was the Barbary Wars, which were essentially us hiring out mercenaries to go attack the Barbary states, the North African piratical states, in order to demand that they leave American ships the fuck alone. Yeah. Yeah. This country sucks. This country has sucked. There's no good old days to go back to with this piece of shit country. We're not going back to the 50s or the 70s or the 20s or the 1880s. There's no good days to go back to. It's all bad days. It's always sucked. We've always been stepping on somebody's throat while stealing somebody's purse. We've always been persecuting some minorities somewhere while lifting up some white guys somewhere else. We've always been doing terrible things to tons of people systemically, intentionally. And it's ignorance not to know that. Like, I don't understand people that like this country or profess to love this country. Patriots are the most ignorant people, or the people who benefit the most from this continued violence. Yeah, you told me you were playing diplomacy. I still haven't played a game of diplomacy. I think I played a video game version of it once, but that's it. My friends will not play strategy games with me. They learned after playing Risk with me once or twice. My friends will not play strategy games with me. It's sad. It's sad and frustrating, but I'm very good at them. Obviously, it's a column, sure, a foundational column of this channel, right? But I can't play strategy games because all my friends get mad and team up on me. And then we just fight to a stalemate. And nobody's happy. PDX does have like a 15-year-old diplomacy game. Yep, I think that's the one I played. The ancient one. Yeah. So, you know, I'm doing fine. I had some annoying dreams last night that fucked with my sleep, but yeah, whatever. Everything sucks. Pandemic's on the uptick, and I'm feeling pressured to take jobs I don't really want in order to give myself some false sense of security. But I probably won't do that. Yeah. Okay. I'll take a look. One of the earliest games I played when I started playing online games was... I really like politicking. I really do. One of the earliest ones I played was Cybernations. Is Cybernations even still up? Yeah, dog, it still is. God help them. Is TTK still around? 48 nations. What happened to you? Oh, statistics as of 2015. Oh, this is out of date. TTK, you still around? No? Not looking like it, or y'all have absolutely fucked my beautiful alliance. Okay, you know what? That's fine. Yeah, Cybernations was a lot of fun back in the day. Just the politicking, because there's like nothing to the game itself. It was just intrigue and politics and good stuff. TTK dead? Probably. I mean, it was never a big, alliance, and I think we... 2016 they existed. No, there's something on 2020 talking about them. Yep, and they're still annexing people. Yep, TTK were great. And this is a post from January 1st, 2020, and it's TTK annexing the NADC. Such a great, weird little alliance. You know, the naming scheme probably problematic, the Templar Knights, but, you know, at the time, it didn't seem that way. It was just a neat aesthetic. Hold on, are we still using that same old flag? Well, I say we, are they? It's weird being, yeah, they are, being a founding member of something that has survived 14 years. Oh my god. Wow. Yeah, Kern. God bless you, Kern. We made a monster. The TTK was basically founded in the aftermath, or in the midst of the first, like, world war of cyber nations. It was a bunch of neutral nations that didn't want any part of it. And out of that neutrality, slowly just started assimilating other nations. Yeah, 14 fucking years ago. That's crazy. That's fucking crazy. It would not take a genius to put 2 and 2 together to figure out who I was in TTK. I was a Grandmaster. Grandmaster is the presidential position. I was the head of the organization for a while. I don't want to be too much more specific than that, but for a while. And I was part of the governing council for a long, long time. Back in high school, I ran guilds for Cyber Nations and World of Warcraft and, oh god, something else. I was a lot more active online, like, socially. But I now get anxiety being social online in, like, MMOs. Like, it all feels like a grift to me. It all feels like a trick or a scheme or, like, just spam. Like, I don't have the capacity to feel genuine human connection to other people in MMOs anymore. Whenever people are, like, recruiting for guilds or alliances or, you know, whatever the name of the thing is in the game, I'm always like, nah, you're just spamming. You don't really care about me. You're not really interested in me. It's, oh my god. I think I heard of that. Yeah, there were a lot of similar-ish games at the time. I'm amazed Cyber Nations is still around, honestly, because it was a clone of a different game. Yeah, I'd love to go back to my... The first MMO I ever played was Star Wars Galaxies. And it was such a goddamn good game, and I will die on that hill. I will die on that hill. I had some of my earliest romantic internet relationships, and I'll even say sexual encounters through that game, through the relationships I made through that game. Don't go and figure out how old I was at the time. Don't. You won't like the math. Don't do it. I experimented with gender identity for the first time in that game, gender representation for the first time in that game. I helped found and organize guilds of hundreds of members and become a respected leader by hundreds of people, and I was just a teenager. It was such a powerful, formative moment being in this space where the only representation of you that really mattered was the performance, right? Who you actually had the capacity to be. Man. Good memories. Weird memories. I mean, slightly troubling memories, but in some capacity, but good memories on the whole. The Agrarian Republic of Firenze? The first result is is a newspaper article from Italy that I can't read. Ah, that's rad. Yeah, nothing about my I was not woke as a teenager, not in any respect. I wasn't really concerned about any of that, and I was very ignorant in a lot of ways. I often have the fantasy of, like, if I could just transport my mind back in time 20 years, do it all over again. God, that would be satisfying, just to be able to know things, to be a better person and an ally to people who were queer or trans in the schools I went to. And by ally, I mean be more openly queer and trans at that time, probably. All the politics I could foresee, all the ways I could get involved politically, all the ways I could get involved socially, like, meaningfully at a young age. I could do so much better in school. I could go to different schools. But I'm not sure I'd want to go to different schools, because the whole trick about, ooh, if only I could turn back time, is that if you change one thing, you change everything. You change fundamentally the entire world. If you go to a different school, go to a different place. I mean, I have friends who are alive now that are alive because of me. It's not hyperbole. So if I went to different schools, if I met different people, if I made different friends, those people might not be alive. I hope they would be, but they might not. I've saved a couple of lives of strangers. If I wasn't working a piece of shit dead-end job that I hated, working night desk, I might not have been able to save someone from being sexually assaulted. Maybe somebody else would have been there instead of me, but this is the troubling thing you get into when you start going, oh, if I could change this, then I wouldn't have had to do this. If I could change this, I wouldn't have had to do this. Yeah, time travel's a can of worms that I hope we never open. Yeah, you know, there are a surprising amount of neo-Nazi states in games like Cybernations and games that are political simulators. Like, holy shit. I follow the alternate history subreddit because I like the weird maps some people come up with. The predominance of Großdeutschland being a thing is deeply, deeply disturbing. So many people who are amateur historians are just like, what if big Germany? What if thick Germany? Ooh, what if Germany won the Second World War? Like, come up with something more original. This is every white boy's first foray into alt history. Do better. Do something more interesting. This topic has been written to death. TNO? Alright, I'm gonna tear into TNO a little bit here because we're an hour and 40 minutes into this. Nobody's ever gonna watch this far who's a TNO fanboy. It sucks. It sucks and it's bad. They worked on it 6 fucking years before releasing it, and the mechanics show. The writing is terrible and juvenile, and it's absolute fucking garbage. The TNO fanboys that have been commenting and being like, you just need to go to the subreddit to understand it. Fuck you. It's bad writing. It's bad concept. It's garbage. It's garbage, and I'm tired of pretending it's not. Socialist Germany, but big. Yes, but consider not socialist Germany, but big. But international, but worked. What if that? Yeah. You know, I'm not separate from having the propensity to exploring my political fantasies in fiction, right? I mean, look at the fucking mods I make. One allows you to not avoid, but mitigate a lot of wars and acts of genocide against indigenous peoples of the United States, of the Americas, right? That's a predominant theme. That's a fantasy. I mean, even the allowances I'm making that to step away from history a little bit are entirely ahistorical and fanciful, because the party line at that time was incredibly inhuman. Alex, this is alternate history, not crackhead history. Listen. Excuse you. I can believe that somehow the first International magically would have worked. Or succeeded. Ah, God, the first International. We're so excited about the American Civil War. They thought, oh man, the workers and the union are going to win, and they're going to change, and this is going to be the first successful socialist War revolution. Marx even was so fucking hype about the American Civil War and its political potential. And then, Yep. Reconstruction ended with very little meaningfully changing, and the status quo settled back in because the landed money interests had political influence. God, yeah, history is heartbreaking. It really is, and I think we all want some sense of order, some sense of, man, things would be better if only this one simple thing. And the truth is, probably not. To be honest, things suck. Things have always sucked, and things will probably always suck. It is one of the greatest callings of this life, of any life, to try to mitigate that suck. To try to make things a little less painful, a little better, bit by bit. But the difficult thing is, so many people have varying definitions of what better is and better means. And some of these philosophical differences come into contact and conflict with power and lead to conflict. Which often serves as opportunity for those with power to get more power. I don't believe that humanity is intrinsically good. Don't. I was thrilled. Someone I follow on Twitter, some leftist, and there's quite a few of them, posted a poll. God, this was probably about a week ago now, asking for their followers, their community, leftists, to answer what they thought humanity was. Inherently good, inherently evil, or inherently something else. And man, the vast majority voted inherently something else. We are not inherently good. There is no inherent good in the universe. Good is what we make and what we think of it. We're inherently just animals. And we can do better. And that's the call, right? The call to do better is what resonates in the best of us. This has been a rambling 2 hours. I'm probably not going to put timestamps in this one because I've really fully embraced the weird train of thought today. I think I needed to. Tell you what, it's been almost 2 hours. And the only thing I really wanted to talk through was, God, I had this really frustrating dream. Nah, I got over that a while ago. Politically, I'm not that upset about what's going on. Like, it's all going to hell. I voted, which is my minor contribution. I'm still trying to get people... Seriously, join the fucking DSA if you're in the United States. Join the Democratic Socialists of America. It's very easy. It doesn't cost much. You get to decide based on your income how much your annual fees are. Like, your membership dues can be functionally nothing if you're unemployed like I am. I have friends who have been like, well, I just don't want to pay for it. Bitch, you can pay like $20 a year. You can pay like $2 a month. That's it. It's nothing. That's nothing. But they still use it as an excuse to not get involved. I'm so tired of trying to convince them. But the DSA right now is trying to make a push to get 100,000 members. Or new members. New members would be great. So hey, DSAUSA.org. Go do something useful besides voting. Organize. Collaborate. Join your fucking union. Protest. Support protesters. Build, local support networks. There's a lot of good work you can be doing besides voting. But the vast majority of people who have been emailing me and texting me and, oh my god, driving me insane about voting are going to do none of those things. They're not going to go and organize next. They're not going to go and build communities and build power structures. They're not going to become activists. They're not going to become lobbyists. They're going to do nothing besides agitate and guilt more progressive and active people for not voting for their dipshit old senile candidate with a racist cop running as VP. Alex, she can't be racist. She's black. Well, look at her policies. Kamala Harris has been disowned by her progressive family. And meet her father has effectively disowned her. But we talk about, you know, Biden's relationship with his family as being virtuous, but we don't look at the opposite and go like, oh, well, maybe this is problematic and points to some flaws in their character or their politics or their da-da-da-da-da-da. No. Okay. I'm not going to drag this out because God knows I could forever. But I want to save my voice because I will be streaming more Dragon Age, let's say in like an hour probably. I want to get off of here, make some tea, eat a food, watch something stupid to get the politics out of my brain. And then I'll be back with some Dragon Age Origins. Where are we at right now? Well, we just picked up Shale. And I have no idea what's next. I suppose we're probably going to go pick up either Oghren or Wynne. I like Wynne more. She's a lot more useful, so we'll probably go pick up the best healer in the game. Which means we're off to Lake Calenhad next. So I'll probably bring along Sten so he can get a sword. Yeah. Which means we're doing the Mage's Tower. Which means we're doing the Fade. Oh. I really want to do that to myself. It's either the Fade or Orzammar, Alex, and you don't like either of them. Yep. Probably going to the Mage Circle. Yeah. I'll be back on later. Have a good morning. I hope you sleep more, because 90 minutes is definitely not enough. Go to bed. Until tomorrow, toodaloo, take care. See you then. Bye-bye.